Wouldn't it be nice to have several thought leaders in your industry know and love your brand? Start a podcast. Invite your industry's thought leaders to be guests on your show, and start reaping the benefits of having a network full of industry influencers. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm Jonathan Green.
And I'm James Carberry.
Let's get into the show. Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. Today we are joined by Mario Martinez Jr. Mario is the CEO and founder of Vengreso. Mario, welcome to the show.
Jonathan, thank you so much, my friend, for having me. I'm super excited to be with you here on the show today.
It's a pleasure to have you. I mean, we've tried to connect. Both of us have had some scheduling problems. We finally did it, and I'm really glad that we're getting a chance to pick your brain today when we're going to be talking about the modern buyer, how the modern buyer really requires a modern salesperson, and we're even going to relate that back to marketing for those professional executive marketers in our audience. But before we get into today's topic, Mario, maybe you can tell our listeners a little about what you and the Vengreso team are up to these days.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jonathan. Well, the Vengreso team, wow, we've had a whirlwind last probably 8 weeks now, almost 8 weeks. You may have seen in the news, I know we follow each other, but you saw about on June 20th, we announced a 7-way merger of 7 different digital sales influencers and content marketing influencers came under one umbrella, which is now called Vengreso.
Wow, yeah.
And it has been one of the funnest things I've ever done, but by far, without a doubt, Jonathan, this is my 21st year in business and business sales and in leading teams. It is absolutely the hardest thing I've ever done was to create a 7-way merger. My wife still doesn't understand why I couldn't go with 3. But I chose to go with 7, and it's been a lot of fun. It really knocked our competitors off. They had no idea it was coming. We kept it in stealth mode, and so I'm very excited. Just purely focused in on digital sales transformation and helping sales and marketing align, driving the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right tool set in the sales community to help leverage digital selling as a way to be able to connect with today's modern buyer.
Well, that's fantastic. That's really tremendous about your success and your merger. Let me ask. I guess we don't need to get super specific about it, but I am curious what you found to be the most challenging aspect of this 7-way merger. I mean, do you think that there was a lot of I don't want to say ego, but a lot of people had different ideas for the direction? Was everyone pretty aligned, and it was just kind of sorting out, okay, our various roles? What would you say was one of the biggest challenges there?
Yeah, well, you hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. These are all influencers that have come together under one umbrella. But here's what we knew. What we knew was 2 things. As a soloist or as a small business owner, there were 2 problems that every one of us had, and some of us had been in business for 10 years or 15 years and below, right? But every single person had the exact same 2 problems. 1, they had a very difficult time scaling their business, and 2, they had a much more difficult time getting leverage that they needed, right? So in order to add on another resource, another person to help out where you're already tapped out, you've got to sell more to be able to support that extra headcount. Well, now with 7 people combined under one organization, it's now divided by 7 people in terms of a sales perspective, right? So the leverage part, really starts to downplay itself by coming together. So everybody knew that they had that problem. The hard thing has been, when you're scaling a company, you no longer own the decision for everything, right? And so every single leader that we brought to the table, you had to give them the CEO position of whatever segment of business that they were going to own and responsibility. And that we've really stuck true to that, right? So you've got our CMO, you've got our chief learning officer, you've got our chief sales officer, you've got our CVO, our chief digital, et cetera. And every person is responsible for that particular segment of our business, and they own that decision. And you own the good and the bad. And sometimes you'll make a decision that others don't like, and we have a common thing. We have to stay in our swim lane. And if we can respect the fact that we were all successful individuals and built, great solid businesses, then we're going to be able to crush it from a marketing and sales perspective on the outside. And that's been probably difficult because it's hard to stomach when someone says no to you when you used to be able to say yes, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds fantastic, Mario. Obviously, you are a digital sales expert, and that's one of the reasons why we're so fortunate to have you on the show today, talking about this idea that the modern buyer requires a modern salesperson. So, help me out. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, well, it's a great statement. I use that in all my keynotes. It's been floating around now. Today's modern buyer requires a modern salesperson, and both sales and marketing have a role and responsibility in modernizing the sales force. And this somewhat may seem cliche, but it's interesting that we have such a giant problem in the industry as it relates to salespeople being able to engage with buyers the way buyers want to engage. And if you think about this concept from a pure marketing and sales perspective, what is you first have to understand what is today's modern buyer all about, right? And if you can understand that, then you can translate that into a modern seller. So if it's okay with you, maybe, Jonathan, I can just kind of go through what is a modern buyer.
Yeah, let's break it down.
Okay, so there's 4 things that we know about today's modern buyer. Number 1, they are digitally connected. The average number of connected devices owned worldwide, average per person, is 3.64 connected devices. Well, what the heck do you think someone is doing on a connected device that has access to the World Wide Web?
I would imagine they're swiping left and right just constantly.
Exactly. They're connected, right? So they're out there, or they're on. The next thing that we know about a modern buyer is that they're socially engaged. And if you look back at the stats, it's interesting. Back in 2008, 24% of the U.S. population had a social networking profile. By the end of 2016, it was 78% of the U.S. population had a social networking profile. That's a dramatic change in just 8 years, right? 24 to 78%. So now that study included all social networking sites. There's over several hundreds. And that includes all the dating sites, et cetera. But if you look at it on the business side of things, the major ones, we've got LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, and the one that people forget all the time, YouTube. Right?
Yeah.
So our buyers are socially engaged on these platforms, and we know this is true. There are study after study showcasing that, questions have been asked to buyers that, and the studies show 75% of B2B buyers say that they've used social media such as LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, or their professional online community to assist them in company purchases, right? So now we know they're digitally engaged, socially connected. We also know that today's modern buyer is mobile attached. All right, I'm going to ask you a question, Jonathan, that you're going to have to be embarrassed by with your listeners.
Yep.
But I already know the answer to this question. I'm pretty positive you're going to say yes. Do you bring your phone to the bathroom with you?
Every time I do. Yep.
Okay, so the reality is, those that are listening, you're probably thinking oh my God, that's so gross, right? The reality is we're such a mobile attached society that we freaking bring our phones to the toilet with us, and while we're on the pot, we are swiping left and right and up and down, right?
Yep.
And this is exactly what our buyers are doing. We sleep with our phones next to us on the nightstand. The first thing that we do when we wake up in the morning is check our phones. And oftentimes you might even find yourself under the sheets with the lights off, and you're on your phone, right?
Yeah.
And the 4th thing that we know about today's modern buyer is that they're video hungry. Now the stats show, and they're relatively close in line wherever you go for to get these stats. But by the end of 2017, 69% of all consumer internet-related traffic will be as a result of consumption of video, and that stat shows that it's going to rise to 79% by 2018. So we've got our buyers that are digitally connected, socially engaged, mobile attached, and video hungry. So if that is what you are like, those of you listening, and yourself, me as well, why would we not think our buyers are not like that as well? Now, if we can understand that piece, Jonathan, that's what the modern buyer is like, now we can turn around and say, holy crap, I got to figure out how to actually turn around and become a modern seller to address this burning desire to consume video, the all-inclusive mobile attached environment, the socially engaged buyer, and the digitally connected. That's where we go into from the modern buyer, and now we transition into the modern seller.
Yeah. Well, and I think that certainly the B2B sellers, the B2B marketers, I mean, this is not a new concept, but they're taking a lot of lessons from the B2C space, where you would think like, oh, my consumer, the buyer of my service or product, he's just an average Joe. He's just like us. But, B2B buyers, B2B sellers are also, we're all still people. We all still adhere to this profile that you've broken down for us.
Yeah, absolutely. But what's interesting though is if you look at the sales organization, right? Marketing's job is to help enable the sales organization with the right information to be able to engage with buyers where the buyers want to engage. The problem is nobody's teaching the salespeople how to engage and be a modern seller. The other problem that we have is that the sales leadership team, I'm 40 years old. I grew up this is my 21st year in sales, born and raised in sales from starting out at the software company. And ended at my last stop in corporate, which was less than 2 years ago, as a RVP of sales for the software collaboration company. And everybody who is the 40 years and older age, we grew up selling the way we grew up selling. We grew up knocking on doors. We grew up cold calling. We grew up email blasting. We grew up going to networking events, shaking hands, and trying to find our targeted contacts and then trying to arrange meetings. Now, what you will not hear me say as a digital sales evangelist, that those methodologies are dead. What you will hear me say, though, to any sales leader that is listening to this program and or marketing leader, is that we know with 100% certainty that they've become less effective. The stats prove it. And your sales team, in terms of the amount of opportunities that are entering the funnel as a direct result of cold calling, you're having to make more and more calls in order to be able to get the same level of opportunities into the pipeline. So how do we transition and how do we transform our sales organization to become a modern seller? Well, you've got to teach them and you've got to help them develop the right mindset. That mindset is wait a minute, I cannot just be engaged through one channel or two channels. I have to have an omni-channel approach to my sales process. What does an omni-channel approach mean? Well, a modern seller understands that you're still going to use the phone, you're still going to use email, you're still going to use networking events, and you're still going to ask people for a referral. But a modern seller also understands that you're now going to engage with your buyers through social networks, through text messaging, through video engagement. You're going to engage with them through receiving referrals because you're engaged through providing content out into your network. Right? And that's really the difference. And what happens is those that are 40 and older, we grew up in the old school way and we just don't understand how to use these tools. And that's why it's so important to develop the right mindset to shift, to say, holy crud, I've got to change the way I'm engaging with my buyers because my buyers are there. They're scrolling on the pot just like I am, right? They're sleeping with their phone just like I am. And so I've got to teach my people the right mindset, then help them develop the right skill set. And once they've got the right skill set, you give them the correct tool set to engage in a digital fashion.
Yeah, I love that. And Mario, what does that relationship look like then between the modern marketer and the modern seller? Kind of where is that handoff? Where is that synergy? What does that relationship look like?
Yeah, great question. It is a multifaceted approach, and there's no one line of delineation that says, okay, marketing, you're going to own this, and sales, you're going to own this. This is truly the moment in time where marketing and sales are going to sit down, and we're not talking about going to your social media manager and saying, hey, I heard that social is a new way to do it. Can you teach us some social stuff? No, because guess what? A social media manager, no offense to our listeners who's social media managers, but you've never actually carried a bag and carried a quota to teach a salesperson how to leverage this channel, right? So that's not necessarily the right solution, although it is absolutely a critical element to have social media engaged to help your sellers. Really what you're looking at is you take the marketing side and you say, marketing, step number one in turning our sellers into a modern selling organization is that we have to develop the right, correct digital brand. So, Mr. Modern Marketer, You understand that you do this on your website today and that you have to have a website that actually speaks to your buyer every time they come in. And your job as a marketer is to ensure you convert from website visitor to actually top of the funnel type of activities. Lead magnet, white papers, ebooks, whatever the case might be. Marketing does this on a one-to-many, the macro level approach. But guess what? The channel that marketers are forgetting that is as large and as productive, and if not fills at least generally 50% of the sales funnel, in many cases, is your sales team. So why would you not go out there and help rebrand your sales team to turn their profiles, which is what we do at Vengreso, is help turn these profiles, these digital profiles, from a resume into a resource with calls to actions and content that your buyers are looking for and or are going to look you up when you engage with them. So that's step number one. Step number two then comes into the concept of now you have to develop a content strategy that supports your salespeople engaging with buyers at all levels of the buyer's journey, from the beginning to the very end, to building relationships, to actually creating discussions, right? And many marketing organizations do a good job at that, right, in the content strategy piece. But then you get into the content distribution and the teaching your reps how to actually distribute this content and teaching them actually how to engage, how to prospect, how to connect, how to actually use all this data to pinpoint laser-focused activities that drive the most important thing for a salesperson, conversations.
Yeah.
And that's where you really start bringing together the marketing and sales alignment and understanding how critical that is to driving actually modern sales success.
Perfect. Well, Mario, obviously you are an expert in this field. You had mentioned Vengreso and the amazing work that you're doing, churning, I forget exactly how you phrase it, churning these online, quote unquote resumes into a resource, actually teaching people how to engage. So if any of our listeners want to follow up, they want to learn more about today's topic, they want to connect with you, they want to learn more about Vengreso, or they even, Mario, you have your own show. If they want to tune in, what's the best way for them to go about doing all that?
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. To a couple areas. One, Vengreso, Vengreso, Vengreso.com. And we've got some great, amazing resources on there. You've also got the Selling with Social podcast and the Social Business Engine podcast and Conversations with Phil. These are all centered around sales and marketing podcasts as well. And then also just reach out to me on LinkedIn. I am a social media fiend. And I will connect with you. Just say you heard me on Jonathan's show here, and I'll definitely be happy to connect with you. And send me any questions you like. Engage with me on LinkedIn. Engage with me on Twitter at M_3JR.
And Mario may even be in the bathroom at the time. Who knows?
Exactly. I just won't tell you.
Well, Mario, thanks again so much for your time today. It was a pleasure having you on the show.
Jonathan, thank you, buddy. I appreciate you having me. Thanks for having me. Very much appreciate it.
To ensure that you never miss an episode of the B2B Growth Show, subscribe to the show on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. This guarantees that every episode will get delivered directly to your device.
If you or someone you know would be an incredible guest for the B2B Growth Show, email me at jonathan@sweetfishmedia.com and let us know. We love connecting with B2B executives, and we love sharing their wisdom and perspective with our audience.
Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.